You drift gently through a space that holds no breath, no wind, and yet it speaks. A silence so deep it hums above and below you, scattered like leaves once carried by solar winds. Are the remnants of ancient planetary dreams, fragments of stone and metal weaving endlessly in orbit. This is the asteroid belt, shimmering ribbon between Mars and Jupiter. A no man's land carved by time, gravity, and chance. You float slowly, intentionally, as though the belt itself is a great cosmic stream, and you're carried within it, not navigating through, but listening. You close your eyes, though there is no light to shield from here. Listen with something softer than ears. Whispers drift between the rubble. Some say the belt is what remains of a world that never was. A planet that tried to form, but could not. Jupiter, that giant guardian and disruptor, kept it from coming together, breaking creation before it could rise. Others say it is the solar system's attic, where forgotten pieces of potential have been. Swept, but there it is now, glowing quietly in the black. Hundreds of thousands of asteroids, tumbling stones, and metallic-wrapped memories, orbiting like silent pilgrims around their golden star god. You turn in slow thought as you float, and then a shape, dark, massive, quietly tumbling passes. Nearby, its surface is irregular, crater-scarred, dusted with microregolith finer than sand. You reach out with a gesture of wonder, though your touch never lands. You don't need to touch. You're here to feel. What is it worth, you wonder? Not just in gold or nickel or precious platinum, but in meaning. A strange thought arrives, that this rock might be richer than most nations, and yet lie untouched. No fences, no flags. No hands. The belt doesn't shout this fact. It whispers it tenderly, as if unsure whether to lure or protect. You begin to see them not as rocks, but as archives. Each asteroid, a page from the solar system's formation. These bodies have not changed much in 4.5 billion years, like frozen. Messengers preserved in cosmic deep time, and inside some, metals. Rare ones, heavy ones, the same that drive economies and decay into jewelry and microchips back home. You drift closer to one, shaped like a broken heart wrapped in soot. Sensors. Reading quietly. Platinum, nickel, iron, traces of water ice. You imagine extracting it, carefully, turning the surface into glitter, the core into coin. You remember Earth's crust, how those metals had to be raked, dug, smelted, and refined. Here, they rest almost bare, like open veins atop moon-gray skin. But this is no open invitation. To mine. One asteroid is to leap across kilometers of void, to launch, to match orbit, to scrape clean that which was once never meant to be touched. Still, a thought scratches at the edge of your mind. Do ancient things want to be left alone? Or do they wait, knowing one day they'll be found? You look out across the silent carousel of stone, everyone tumbling softly to their own clockless rhythm. Once seen as dangerous obstacles, now dreamt of as opulent harvests. You drift past one labeled 16 Psyche. It is no small stone, but a metallic mountain 200 kilometers wide, worth trillions by earthly banks. Yet here, it simply turns. Light from the sun ripples off its nickel bright. Belly. Gleams like jewelry from a slumbering goddess. And still, no claim has been laid. No hand has staked it as sovereign land. No drills have kissed its surface. You whisper to yourself, will this stillness survive the first engine? You find yourself torn between two lullabies. One sings of untouched beauty, the other of future wealth. And maybe that is what this belt is. A place where desire and restraint spiral together in orbit. Somewhere inside, you feel it. This place is not empty. It is pregnant with potential. You let yourself imagine a future. Nations and companies sending mining fleets. Autonomous robots extending silver arms to harvest like bees upon cosmic flowers. Refineries floating in orbit, turning space rock into capital. A new economy untied to Earth, whirring silently among the stars. You exhale slowly, hope, awe, and unease in equal breath. Perhaps you think this isn't about metal at all. Perhaps it's about daring to dream beyond a single planet. Not because Earth is broken, but because humans are wanderers, always building new Edens among the shadows of old stardust. The belt doesn't confirm or deny this. It only continues to circle. Forever out of reach, yet always watching, its ancient rhythm whispering on. And as you drift farther, you ask yourself softly, if value isn't just measured in dollars, could these rocks be rich in something else entirely? A hush deepens. Behind you, the earth lies pale and shy. Before you, the gravitational pull of questions, not answers, draws you ever inward. And somewhere between orbits, a soft whisper calls again. Will you listen deeper, or dig? There's something familiar in the hunger, the way humanity watches the stars, not just with wonder, but want. Long ago, it was rivers in California, snowy stretches of the Klondike, remote canyons in Australia. Now, it's rocks in space. Cold and spinning, rich with metals, wrapped in silence. The asteroid belt shimmers once more in your peripheral memory, but this time, it's no longer quiet. This time, it hums with boots you cannot hear and dreams you cannot hold. You are floating not just in space now, but in remembrance of what came before and what might come again. You remember the gold rushes of Earth? Wide-eyed prospectors chasing rumors across continents. They built cities in weeks, left ghost towns in years. They panned rivers dry, carted fortunes on mules, rewrote laws with greed, and they believed always that the next strike would set them free. Now, the next strike circles the sun. You open your mind's eye and picture it, not canvas tents and iron pickaxes, but sleek robotic probes, data streams beaming across the void, men and women in boardrooms pointing to spinning dots on orbital maps. This is not fiction. This is formation, still trembling on the horizon of time. And still beneath the screens. And equations the same fire burns. Gold, platinum, rare earths. The keys to propulsion, power, and immortality in circuitry. One single asteroid mere kilometers across could yield more precious metal than all Earth's mines combined. Imagine that. $1 trillion rock waiting in quiet spin. You feel the tension, that electrified thread drawn taut between awe and ambition. Ships, sleek and dreamlike, touch down on foreign stone. Scoop arms extend like praying mantises in slow ballet. Inside their bellies, the yield begins. Grain by grain, crushed asteroid becomes cargo. But this new gold rush does not echo with shouts or gunfire. There are no saloons, no steam trains. Just telemetry. Just the ghostly hum of machines mining in absolute silence. And yet the greed still glitters. You hear it not with your ears, but with the pulse of history repeating. Governments, eager for dominance. Companies branding the void. Investors daydreaming on Earth, while drones dig at dawn in space. Once, they chased rumors for gold flakes and RIVERBEDS. Now, they chase spectral scans of asteroid composition. Still see treasure in the tilt of numbers. Still name stones before touching them. You breathe in. Slowly, there's something eerie about it all. Not evil, not noble, just eternal. What is it within humans that longs, endlessly, to take what lies untouched and coax it into currency? And yet, you also feel something else, not greed, but wonder. Softer echo beneath the scramble voices of scientists, poets, builders, caregivers, those who mine not for riches, but for meaning. This, one pilot whispers through a comlink, hovering above a carbon-rich body, is for all of us. We left no steps behind. And so you ask yourself again, can ambition, when stretched across stars, remain pure? Or is it always shadowed, no matter how high it climbs? Down on Earth, people speculate on asteroid ETFS. They sketch out futures where spacecraft mine. Wow. We sleep where metal hordes stabilize economies, or shatter them. And maybe you think that's the gamble inside the glitter. Not whether we can touch asteroids, but whether we should. History tells one story. Rush, claim, extract, decay. Hope tells another. Learn, respect, renew, evolve. You float high above psyche again, its metal bones turning in pre-programmed silence. You imagine a miner's child, looking up at the night sky and whispering, "My mother mined a mountain that orbits the sun." And suddenly, it doesn't feel like greed, it feels like legacy. Still, you feel the question lingering in the quiet. Which story are we repeating? You exhale softly. The universe doesn't answer, that it never argues with itself, that it simply offers infinity. And that, perhaps, is the gift and the danger. The void doesn't care. If you rush into it, it only waits, while humans again chase a shimmer. The gold rush is not finished, It has only changed its address. And as the engines warm, and the ships rise like metal lily blooming in zero gravity, you wonder, will they bring back riches? Or stories? You drift again, this time not over stone or stars, but over ideas. Not everything in space is made of metal and rock. Some things are far stranger. Money, ownership, networks invisible. You pass above Earth and see its patterns from afar roads. Ports, cities aglow. You realize something. Economies are just maps, drawn around desire. But out here, in the silent dark between planets, those maps melt. Up becomes nothing. Down even less. And value floats free. You imagine a single asteroid rich in precious metals, quietly spinning, unseen to the naked eye. Probe lands. It drills. It harvests platinum enough to shift the wealth of nations. Not a fantasy. A forecast. And so the question glides toward you, shimmering. What happens to value in a place where there's no weight? You close your eyes and feel the silence around you. On Earth, systems are rooted. Supply chains start underground. Profits move from land to ledger. Ownership is tied to boundaries, to fences, to soil. But here, there is no land, no borders. Everything floats. Value, even. It drifts. Like pollen in the cosmic wind. You see numbers spinning on dashboards. Estimates of trillion-dollar asteroids. But from this high, those numbers look small again. Because what is money when gravity is no longer the judge? Back on Earth, price obeys physics. Scarcity, labor. Location. But what if metals become abundant beyond scarcity? What if a single rock carried more platinum than Saturn's rings could count? Would that metal still be precious? Would it still buy power? Or would it become just material? A soft fear tickles your thoughts. Too much of a good thing can undo the goodness. If supply floods the system, if asteroid gold floods, Earth, then what was once rare becomes ordinary. Markets sway, wealth shifts, currencies tilt. This is the paradox. Buried in celestial ambition, by uncovering treasure, we may unearth the end of its value. You hear voices again, threaded through time-space, like echoes through mist. The first trillionaire will be made in space. The global economy will expand into the stars. Trillions in metals orbiting freely, just waiting. So much want. So much hope, promised in the language of worth. But you hear another kind of whisper, to a quieter voice. One that asks not what we'll gain from bringing materials home, but what we lose when everything becomes for sale. Here in zero gravity, even profit feels lighter. You picture a database spinning in low Earth orbit, a digital marketplace tracking the claims of companies on asteroids. No farmland, no deed, Just coordinates and mass projections. Asset bubbles bloom like stars. 2037K27 projected yield. $14.8 trillion. Pending refinement tech. Psyche Corp files new patent for orbital material trusts. You imagine credit chip readers aboard. Spacecraft dot barcodes on rock dust. Dividends in microgravity. The absurdity makes you smile. Or is it all? Economies in orbit. A ballet of speculation, spiraling silently between planets. But even so, something stirs in all of this fantasy. Justice. Who owns what in the nothingness? Who gets to stake a claim on something older than Earth itself? Who draws laws in the vacuum? Who decides that the metal in this asteroid belongs to one and not to all? You drift through orbital tax havens, future stock tickers streaming across the void. Siderite coin up 8%. Helium-3 futures stabilize after lunar discovery. Billionaires quietly betting on celestial commodities, while far below, children still go thirsty. It feels poetic. And cruel, but perhaps transformative too, because in this vast openness, maybe we have the chance to write fairer stories. For the first time, an economy begins not on land, but in nothing. Where we start from. Silence, a pause, a breath, a blank map. What will we draw? Out here, economics can become sacred again if we let it. Imagine economies based not on hoarding, but on balance, on preserving what we touch, on giving back to Earth, even as we reach away from it. You see now not just asteroid outposts, but new forms of value. The price of not extracting. The profit in restraint. Maybe. Our richest ventures won't be mining metals, but mining meaning, using abundance to rebuild, to uplift, to remind Earth that wealth isn't worth anything if it can't be shared. You exhale. Even that breath feels more valuable in space. The asteroid belt spins on, eternally holding more riches than any economy can absorb. Yet its silence cautions you that growth without wisdom bombs collapse disguised as success. So you float there, inside a system not yet written, an economy not yet born. And you ask, softly, the question that will ring across centuries. If everything becomes abundant, what will we still treasure? A pause. The silence doesn't answer, but far below, Earth glows like a single coin, flipping endlessly between future and present. Waiting. You wait, floating in the stillness before ascent. There's a silence that comes not from distance, but from decision. Before the rocket fires, before the blue sky drops into black, there is cost. Not just in dollars. In devotion. And as you hover, in thought, you begin to trace the fine thread between dream and doing. Because it's one thing to imagine wealth in space. And quite an thirdo, reach it. You feel it in your breath, the weight of ambition, wrapped in steel, fueled by data, launched, on flame. Each mission begins not in the stars, but in spreadsheets. Thousands of them. Cost projections. Our OI curves, risk assessments like anxious lullabies. A single spacecraft to a near-Earth asteroid, perhaps. $500 million, maybe more. Launch vehicle. Hardware, AI piloting systems, redundancy plans, return path navigation. It's all math now. Cold spreadsheets for a warm-blooded hope. And still, they go. You picture them. Engineers in dim-lit control rooms. Eyes on blinking graphics, breathing slowly as countdowns whisper to ignition. They are not greedy. They are reverent, because what they touch is delicate. Not just technology, but trust. Trust that weight can be flung out of gravity's grip. Trust that time will hold orbit. Trust that metal arms can mine what fingers never will. The cost is counted in strain. Thousands of quiet hours, millions in trial and error, centuries of earthly scars behind them, burned forests and hollowed mountains as lessons etched in stone and circuitry. Each new launch carries not just hardware, but a question. Will we do it differently this time? You drift now past a suspended cargo hold scaled for deep space. Solar arms unfurl like golden petals. Engines hum ion thin, silent but persistent. The miner dances its slow ballet, orbiting a small, carbon-rich asteroid, its laser-guided fingertips. Kiss the surface, not with force, but finesse. All of this, to touch a rock that no eye has ever seen. You see the invoice in your mind. Thousands of dollars per second of operation. Kilograms of regolith sorted. Brushed, contained. It's expensive. In money. Yes, more so, in patience. Because unlike Earth, space gives nothing easily. Every joule of energy, every gram of harvested material is earned. And yet, there's poetry in the persistence. Because this isn't just business. It's a reaching so bold, it masks itself in spreadsheets. It carries the soul of Sailor Schwo, once launched wooden ships past the edge of map lines. Here be dragons, they said. Now we say, here be data. And dragons still, you drift alongside an orbital refinery prototype. Molten metal glows behind. Transparent walls. Vapors curl upward, slow as incense, motionless, yet moving forward. A soft voice echoes from a tech director's journal. Out. Here, we aren't making money. We're making possibility real. You wonder now, if $1 trillion were spent and no profit return, would it still be worth it? Was Everest worth it? Was the moon? Or is there something we cannot measure in return? Perhaps it's future we're buying. Not the material one, but the spiritual one. A species that dared. A generation that knew it might never hold the gold, but chose to chase it anyway for the sake of learning, proving, becoming. You pass a broken prototype, a shuttered panel, drifting unsalvaged. A test that failed. $1 million lost in 30 silent seconds. But even in failure, something lingers. Progress. Humility. The knowing that stars are not cheap. You turn now toward Earth, its curve, still with needs. Unmet, people unfed, and you pause. The ethical weight returns. Can we afford to spend billions reaching out when suffering still blooms at home? And yet, a softer question pushes forward. Can we afford not to? For discovery does not feed hunger directly, but purpose feeds the soul. And innovation, like wind through seeds, spreads quietly into everything. So, you breathe deeply, not to justify, but to reflect. Touching the stars is costly, but maybe we have always needed these beautiful burdens to remind us that some things are worth effort without guarantee. Profit may buy the ticket, but purpose fuels the burn. And as the robotic hand retracts, metal scooped, mission complete, you feel it. This is not just economics. It's devotion disguised. And you, weightless in thought, are now carried gently into the next question, when silence has been paid for so dearly. What truth will we extract from its depths? End of chapter 4. Cost of touching stars word count. 1,100 words exactly. Take your time to breathe here. Then whenever you're ready, you are floating between destinations. Not where the treasure was found, nor where it will be used. But in the quiet between. The space between rocks and reason. Between ambition and return. This is the realm of movement, but nothing appears to move. No roaring engines. No beeping caravans. Just silence and precision. Logistics. A word so small, so technical, yet in the vastness of space, it becomes poetry. Because out here, nothing can arrive without patience. Nothing can return without grace. You begin to trace invisible highways, stitched softly between planets. Gravitational slingshots. Transfer windows that open like flowers for only moments. Launch. Angles calculated. To the decimal. There is no room for rush here. To push too hard is to miss everything. And so, like ballet dancers in slow motion, spacecraft glide through oceans of emptiness. You pass one now, a cargo drone, returning from an asteroid over months. Of travel. Its engine glows blue, a thin, constant whisper. Ion propulsion. It does not race. It endures. Tiny ions, expelled like sighs. One by one by one. Each choosing direction, each part of a path, known down to the decimal point. No fuel tanks roaring, no bursts of fire. Just the silent discipline of physics, obeyed at every juncture. And inside dash metal. Not molten, not wild. Secured, stable, sorted. You drift alongside the drone, imagining the coded ballet it performs. Update trajectory, adjust drag sails, check solar panel orientation. Thousands of automated lines spoken, like prayers between silence. No human will see the journey in real time. They only see departure and arrival. And yet, it is this part, this hush in between, that holds the very soul of success. Because without the journey, discovery means little. Value, after all, only appears once something arrives. There are other vessels too, convoy strings of small robotic freighters, each carrying a different mineral, a different path. One passes with glassy containers full of water, harvested from a C-type asteroid. Water that might one day fuel rockets, sustain colonies, or simply quench the thirst of some far-off mind preparing their own leap. Another holds platinum, neatly packed, more than any Earth's mind would touch in. A year. And below, a numbered plate, property of no nation. Route programmed. You notice debris fields. 2. Not failure. Just learning in slow orbit. A broken paneler. A decompressed tank there. Every journey adds wisdom painfully earned. Gently taught. No traffic signs. No lanes. Just vectors, maps, probabilities calculated light years ahead. You wonder now, what does time mean here? A return trip might take 6 years. Will the market still hold its breath? Will the engineers be there when it lands? In space, profit must be patient. There is no overnight delivery when your package orbits the sun. And perhaps that's part of it. Magic. Space logistics isn't about speed. It's about faith. Faith in math. Faith in motion. Faith that the thing launched into darkness will one day return. You pause now near a transfer station. Glass domes tethered between orbits, humming gently, receiving, sorting, redirecting. It looks like a honeycomb. You see movement inside, slow lifts, robotic arms, drones speaking with coded light. Not so different, you think, from Earth's ports, but quieter. Cleaner. Nearly wholly in its focus. Whisper from mission logs echoes near. Every kilogram has a heartbeat. Every delay has a ripple. Every capsule carries trust as cargo. And you feel it now. The quiet is not empty. It's intentional. Because in this stillness, information moves like breath. A delay isn't just time lost. It reshapes orbits. Miscalculation isn't just a coding error. It's a missed planet. And so, teams code like poets, plan like monks. The logistics teams, down in Earth's calm control rooms, often invisible to the public, are the pulse of asteroid economy. They ask, where should we store this iron? Can we send a vessel to meet it halfway? What? Can restart after a 9-month silence? Their instruments are calendars. Their tools delayed signals, solar maps, logarithmic estimators. And while billionaires speak on stages about resource revolutions, it is these quiet minds will ensure the cargo lands. You drift higher now, above the play of route and resource. Above the math. And suddenly you feel beauty. Beauty in coordination. In repetition. In trust. In all the slow, invisible systems that carry. A dream not just from one world to another, but from idea to reality. You remember, someone once asked, what is mining? And then answered, it's the act of moving heavy dreams through narrow places, until they shine. Perhaps this silent logistics ballet is the new heavy dream. Not what we extract, but how we carry its promise through the waiting dark. And now, just before the chapter of motion ends, you wander in a world with no rush, bound by orbits. And algorithms, does patience become the greatest currency? You let the question drift, unanswered, its slow arc wrapping around Earth again, and again, and again. You're lying still inside a net of numbers. They sway slightly, like woven threads of starlight and doubt. They aren't aggressive. These numbers dot. They don't warn in bold or blink in red. They whisper risk, like a lullaby lined with hesitation. It. This distance, risk doesn't explode. It simmers. The world loves boldness, but space loves patience. And you are in between. Here, in the quiet space between data and dream, you listen to the calculations that shape this entire venture. They aren't exciting. They don't make headlines, but they are everything. Risk. Venture capitalists speak of it like adrenaline. Scientists measure it like fog density. Mission directors trace it like scars on their timelines. You drift now through a digital manuscript of chance, a risk model, soft as snowflakes on the skin, lines of code assigning possibility to failure, to heat shield malfunction, to communication dropouts, to guidance system anomalies. Probabilities as poetry, written for every stage. Launch, 3.2% deviation window. Transit, 6% potential exposure to solar flare interference. Landing, 1 in 188. Chance of sample arm failure. Return window, opens only once every 26 months. You read these figures not with fear, but with reverence. Each number represents 1,000 quiet thoughts, the calculations of humans trembling behind equations, trying to spell safety through decimals. Because when you're building something that may fly for years, past planets, cross the sun's breath, you don't get second chances. Space doesn't negotiate. It doesn't rage or punish, but it doesn't forgive. So, humans build their luck with math. They soften their fear with layers of logic, sandbags of code, and metric prayers. Is it enough? Sometimes. Sometimes not. You float now through the remnants of a forgotten mission. A drone labeled Ephora 2, drifting. Silent. Engine failure. Lost contact 7 months in, and all that's left is a data log. Lines of optimism turned into echoes. On schedule. Trajectory nominal. Attitude stabilizing. Until there are no more words. Failure is quiet here. No fire. No crash. Just a slow falling off the map. You don't shiver. You simply acknowledge it. This too is part of the gamble. You feel it now, deep in your chest. The truth that humans gamble, not space. Space is just the table. We are the players. We roll the dice each time we light a rocket. Each time we budget for returns a decade away. Each time we wonder if this metal finds Earth still needing it when it finally arrives. Still, we play. Why? Because underneath the numbers, hidden even in the risk spreadsheets, is something richer. Courage. Not the loud kind, but the tender kind. You drift past an office light left on all night. A desk covered in old coffee cups and printed equations. Handwritten. Notes correcting code. A photo of Earth taped on the monitor's edge like a reminder. Somewhere, someone still believes the risk is worth it. Not for money, not even for history, but for something harder to define. That need to try. It's not recklessness. It's reverence. And so you drift again through probability. Reports and go, no-go trees. You trace every if, every else, every backup power law. And something becomes clear. Risk management isn't about avoiding the unknown. It's about respecting it. You hear a whisper in the stillness, not from outside, but inside. We don't protect our dreams by avoiding risk. We do it by understanding it. And now, from the darkness, You see a small blinking light. Online nominal stable. It's nothing special, Dot. Just a status light. Just a system working. But you smile, Dot, because in deep space, this green light isn't just a function. It's a flame dot small dot, but a live dot. You begin to appreciate the ones who sit in this dance daily. They don't chase glory, they listen to silence. Validate systems, debug predictions. They're the quiet anchors that make star chasing possible. You wonder, briefly, if courage always looks like action, Dot, or if sometimes it just looks like calm persistence. A soft sigh of mathematics echoes now from behind solar arrays. It might fail. We still try. As you float onward, past hollow prototypes and pristine new models, past the edge of simulation and into reality again, you ask yourself, if the risk is infinite, but the purpose is pure, isn't that the only bet worth making? You don't need an answer tonight. The uncertainty cradles you now like a blanket of probabilities drawn. Up to your chin. Silence becomes your trust. And with that, you let goof needing to know the outcome, only to honor the effort. You float through something weightless, yet binding, not made of gravity, but of rules, words, signed with pens and hope. The void has no fences. No capitals. Yet Earth has always had an instinct for boundaries. And so, even here where stars shine, without sides, we try to draw lines. You drift now among pages, not physical ones, but imaginary treaties unfolding like paper birds in the black. You trace the most famous one, the Outer Space Treaty, 1967. So old, and yet still orbiting in every cosmic conversation. It says, no nation may claim a celestial body. It says, outer space belongs to all humankind. It says, the moon shall not become the battlefield of sovereign greed. You want to believe it. You really do. But as you float forward, you pass between whispers. Private companies now map asteroid mineralogical content. Luxembourg welcomes space mining corporations. The US passes laws that don't claim territory, but do permit resource ownership, a loophole blooming like a flower in legal shadow. You feel it now, an uneasy glow between law and longing. Because intent is noble, but interpretation stretches. And suddenly, we are capturing sunlight through loopholes, trading fragments of the infinite in earthly courts. You look at an asteroid, not as metal, but as mystery. As history. And you ask softly, can anyone own a piece of this ancient? Silence. Ownership becomes more fragile the deeper you go. You hover beside a digital ledger encrypted, time-stamped, sovereign-back. It records that a 2.1-kilometer asteroid has been claimed. Its future yield subdivided into tradable shares. Wonder what that means. Can a spreadsheet plant a flag? Can a claim hold weight where gravity holds none? You imagine a child on Earth, looking at the stars and naming one after a grandmother, not through deed, through love. Which is the more authentic ownership? You pass through simulations now legal. Models, conflict scenarios, hypothetical arbitration over disputed overloads. Words drift into you. Exclusive access. First come, first rights. Monetize, mineral sovereignty. They feel heavy in a place so light. And yet, perhaps ownership isn't about possession. But about intention. What if a corporation lays claim to an asteroid and shares the bounty? What if nations collaborate, divide not for profit, but for sustenance, knowledge? Could we design a law not of taking but of tending? You recall something older than treaties, the idea of stewardship, of caring for something, not because it is yours, but because it matters. You wonder, can space be guarded, not harvested? Can we be caretakers of what we cannot hold? You hover beside a forgotten draft treaty, revised, redlined, unfinished. It proposed a global asteroid licensing system, fair use clauses, Shared data mandates. Community trusts for space resources. It never passed. Too early. Too hopeful. But the ghost of it lingers, like the residue of a better future. You exhale. Up here, amid the legal shadows, you realize the law is just another kind of launch. A way of pushing intention outward, hoping it finds orbit. And like rockets, some fall, but some remain. Guiding without gravity. You drift now through a court proceeding that hasn't happened yet. A claim dispute between two companies on opposite sides of Earth, each mining the same asteroid, with different maps of where it starts and ends. Arbitration will happen on Earth. But the consequences will ripple through. Space. One satellite turns. One mining arm pauses. One deal is delayed. Stardust goes still. The cost of unclear. Law is cosmic inertia. A hesitation that stalls potential. And yet, slow law is not always bad. You feel that too. Caution protects. Questions. Stabilize. You think of the treaties, not yet written. Of the ideas, waiting like seeds in unborn legislation. Declaration of Equitable Extraction. A charter on cosmic commons. N. Interplanetary Bill of Resource Rights. They sound like dreams, but dreams were treaties once too. You pause now, floating mid-orbit between jurisprudence and yearning. And in this delicate lull, you ask yourself the question Earth has barely begun to answer. Can we write laws in the stars without first writing greed in our hearts? There's no response, only the swirling glow of intent thrown gently into space. And maybe that's where we are, now, between new dawns and old systems, between shadow and light, letting go of ownership, and reaching for something else belonging. Because maybe we don't need to own the starstow, know they are ours. All of ours. Out here, where silence sings louder than steel, the stars begin to feel like mirrors, not of the future, but of us. You float now through a moment between action and reflection. A breath before the drill touches rock. A pause before the harvest begins. And into that moment drifts a quiet question. Should we? Not can we. Not when will we. But should we mine the heavens? Should we press machines against the skin of stars? You think of Earth, its mines, deep and dark. The forests split, the rivers rerouted. The silence that follows where abundance was once found. You think of hands dirty with wealth. Of land that gave too much, of machines that never asked permission. And now, we prepare to do it again. In space. Where no tree may fall, but beauty could. There is no law against repeating a mistake. Only wisdom can prevent the echo. You drift gently near an untouched asteroid, its shape almost organic, like a fossilized flame. It holds secrets older than Earth. It has never heard a voice. Never. Known hunger. But now it has been scanned. Logged. Tagged. Valued. A resource. Is that the beginning of its ending? You exhale. A small cloud of thought scatters like stardust. The question turns itself inside out. What if taking is still okay when done with respect? What if extraction didn't mean destruction, but balance? Is there a way to harvest without harm? 2. Mine gently? To keep beauty intact, even as we touch it. The thought comforts you. For a moment. But even balance requires discipline. The world hasn't often shown. You consider intent, not what we do, but why. Is it to profit, or to progress? Is it to provide, or to possess? These questions hover now, like satellites always near, but never fully landing. You recall a line from an old poem. We are not broken by our reaching, but by forgetting why we reached. Perhaps that's the real caution, not against digging, but against losing reverence. You imagine a future. Mech probes harvesting metals, gently. Children learning astroethics in school. Mission manuals with chapters titled, Leave No Void Scarred. there is still time to write that story. Still time to build the future with a gentler grip. You picture a mining company posting its first deep space honor code. A document outlining not just cost per kilo, but cost dash to dash spirit data manifesto. It begins. Not with profit, but with purpose. And suddenly, you smile. Because ethics in the ether aren't chains, they are wings. They lift us beyond old habits. They remind us to become better while we become bolder. There's no final answer in this chapter. Just questions folded like origami into starlight. Because maybe ethics aren't rules to obey, but music to guide us. Soft, subtle, always playing. And maybe if we listen closely, before machines hum, before drills roar, we'll hear it. The voice of restraint, the sound of wonder, the whisper that says, take only what you can carry with care. Leave only what invites grace. You float once more past the Jew asteroid, its orbit unchanged, its story still unfolding. And as you drift onward, a final thought glows softly in your mind. What you touch may shape the universe, but it will shape you more. You open your eyes slowly. Mars gleams just ahead. Rusted and ready. It still feels like a myth, doesn't it? A planet in poems. And ember in telescopes. A symbol more than a market, but beneath the red dust, something stirs. Something not alive, but becoming. It is the hush before the hammer. The pause before the first price is named. You watch quietly as the invisible, taking shape. A supply chain maps itself, not along highways, but across gravity wells. Orbit to orbit, rock to refinery. Lagrange point to outpost. The miners won't carry pickaxes. Their hands will be robotic. Their eyes will be algorithms. And yet, the movement feels so human. You drift above a Martian crater, marked for future trade. Its floor flattened, its rim wired with sensors. No trucks, no terminals, still emptiness. But in that emptiness, they draw maps and ledgers. You pause and ask, what grows first, the market or the dream? Because here's the secret no finance model can quite explain. Before a market exists, someone has to believe it does. Before there's profit, there's poetry. Before there's a plan, there's a wish. You float past prototype habitats, some still, humming with life, others abandoned like the first page of a forgotten novel. And across their cold shells, one word glows softly, hope. Since the beginning, it has always been hope. Hope that colonies on Mars will mean more than pressurized roofs and growing clean food. Hope that asteroid mining will reduce scarcity rather than deepen it. Hope that technology will not just make use capable, but make us kinder. You picture a child on Earth, drawing with a crayon. A spaceship circles a rock, scoops up silver. Their handwriting reads, when I grow up, I want to be an asteroid farmer. You smile. The economy out here doesn't begin with spreadsheets. It begins with stories. And stories carry value. Earth has forgotten how to measure. Back on your home world, markets are tangled and tense. But out here, still forming, still fragile. Economy is a newborn thing, untouched by habit. And in that softness, there is a question. What if we made better choices this time? Built value not around hoarding, but sharing. Not around extraction, but restoration. Imagine companies born in space. Not to mine as they must, but to mine as they should. Imagine a Martian marketplace where air is free to breathe, where oxygen is a right, not a commodity, where energy is shared like conversation, where profit is purpose-fed, not pressure-driven. You're not imagining utopia. You're imagining improvement. A slow, gentle stretch into something wiser. And yet, a shadow lingers. You can feel the pressure rising from Earth's investors, from nations chasing edge, from legacy greed, looking up and licking its lips. They see metal. They see patents. They see quadrants to be taken. Markets will form. Trade will begin. Dust will turn to dividends. So you ask yourself softly, can the dream survive its own reality? It must. Because even if it becomes business, it started as longing. And longing is honest. So you return your gaze to earth, hanging soft and blue behind you. You trace back down the tether between markets on Mars and dreams on Earth. All connected. When resources flow from asteroid arc to orbital hub, to capsule drop, to school disk, to power line in a village quietly lit for the first time, then you remember. This isn't just commerce. It's cause and effect. It's need and nourishment. And perhaps mining can be more than mere harvest. Perhaps it can be care, the kind that reaches higher, only to serve lower. You picture the invisible lines drawn back down. Jobs formed, energy redirected, metals that build clean tech, rather than fuel war. And in that vision, markets bloom like solar panels. On Martian roofs, ethical, flawed, fragile, real. Human. At its best. The economy of space could be the economy of dreams. Paid in courage, traded in unity, valued by how many are lifted, not how few are enriched. You hover now just above a dusty plateau on Mars, marked by flags from many nations. No one owns it. Yet all have gathered, not to claim, but to commit. To building a shared market in shared sunlight. You feel it deep now, underneath the logic and loops. Maybe mining isn't the goal. Maybe it's just the door. To something bigger. Something kinder. And as you drift farther into the reddish shimmer of morning across Mars, you hear not machines, but memory itself shaping. The question behind all this effort: what if this isn't about profit at all? What if it's about becoming worthy of the stars? You've reached the edge now, not of space, but of something harder to name. A boundary unseen, like the pause just before decision. All this mining, all these missions, all these numbers circling stars like quiet wagers. And yet, beneath it all, there is still risk. Not the clean kind, printed in risk assessments, but the ancient kind, the kind that lives in the pulse behind brave ideas. Because what we're doing isn't just launching spacecraft, we're launching selves, versions of who we could become. Cast into darkness and daring. You think about the gamble. To spend billions reaching for rocks. To build tech that may never pay back. To race against gravity, collapse, fatigue. You think of the critics, those who say the stars are a distraction. Think of the visionaries, those who say they are a destiny. And you float, listening to both sides. Because this is the final truth. The gamble is not about asteroids. It never was. It's about us. Are we the kind of species that reaches outwards. For extraction, or expansion, or expression? Maybe all three. Maybe more. You drift gently through the models again. Cost curves, time frames, material yields. They try to measure return. But how do you weigh wonder? How do you chart the ROI of awe, or the compound interest of courage? You imagine a future where it all succeeds. Metal from orbit weaves into planetary scale change, clean energy tech powered by platinum from the belt, water extracted to fuel interplanetary, transport. Jobs, progress, peace. But you also see the other path. Second Earth forming in space, carved too quickly, owned too tightly, the same mistakes in new suits. This is the gamble's shadow. We may gain everything and lose the reason we reached. So the question blooms. What are we really gambling? Not wealth. Not tech, but something far quieter, our reflection. Because in the mirror of space, we see who we are becoming. And that is riskier than any rocket. Bet you think of the first stone tool picked up by trembling fingers, not knowing what it could do. or what it might begin. We are still holding that stone. Only now, it floats, and the hand holding it is not alone, Dot. It's global, that it's shared, that it's reaching still, far ahead. An asteroid passes slowly, Dot no. Drill yet, Dot no station, Dot just potential, Dot raw. Radiant, untouched, everything we could build. Or ruin. You pause there, mid-orbit, Dot, and in that pause, you realize this gamble is sacred, because it holds a question we've been asking since Fire and Sail. What if we go further? And what if we are better when we arrive? You picture future generations, reading history books titled, How the Stars Became Our Soil. But will those histories read like hymns? Or like hallows filled with regret? You don't know, Dot, and maybe that's okay. Because every great leap contains unknowable things. Even love, even art, even building a bridge to float between planets, Dot, and now, quietly, in this last chapter, you come back to the beginning. Single rock, Dot, not large. Not glowing, Dot, just driftwood in space, Dot. And yet, it changed everything. Not because it was rich, but because we believed in its story, that it could power cities, fund futures, spark exploration, or feed the next bold idea. That belief, that's the real wager. That's the final truth. We are not gambling on asteroids at all, Dot. We are gambling that our reach can match our reverence. That when the vault of space opens, we will not just grab, but give. Not just take, but transform. And as you float back toward Earth, smaller now, softer, familiar, you carry the whisper with you. The stars were never. The treasure was who we became while chasing them.